Get the issue. The Supreme Court said you have no standing. Why? Because you said it in a very interesting way. Texas feels its voters were affected, not the bar, as we both know. That's what you say in politics. You feel a certain way. Litigation is about facts. You know what you show. They have no proof that anything was done wrong. You mentioned Pennsylvania, as we know from a lot of litigation. Those laws were passed by the legislature, reviewed by its own Supreme Court. The legislature never moved against it. So I think you have to move past that phase because you don't have a good case, as we just heard from this highest court in the land, that's 6-3 conservative with 3 judges that Trump put on there. Do you now accept that Biden is president-elect?
Well, the legal path now are in the state courts, and you have to hope that the justices of the state court are going to show somewhat more determination, somewhat more willingness to be willing to take some degree of criticism, and somewhat more willingness to have an open mind. That's all we're asking them to do. We're just asking them to hear the facts. Let the American people hear the facts, and let the judges hear the facts. So far, the facts have been oppressed. They've been subject to censorship. Censorship by big media, censorship by big tech, censorship by the Democrat Party, and censorship by the courts. No court has granted a hearing.
Yeah,
I mean,
let me ask you.
Listen to the facts. What are you so afraid of?
Live from the nation's capital, you're in the war room. It is Saturday, the 12th of December, the year of our Lord 2020. And it's a gathering of the tribes. Washington is being inundated with deplorables on multiple rallies today, multiple marches. We're going to get to all of it. We're going to have all the people, Ben Bergquam from Real America's Voice. We're going to have Maggie VandenBerghe, Fog City Midge out in the field. We've got Amy Kremer, Kylie Jane Kremer, tons of reports live from the stage where the speakers are going to speak today down at Freedom Plaza and all over Washington, D.C., multiple events, and culminating in a massive march from Freedom Plaza up to the Supreme Court in the nation's capital, hard by the war room. Now with over 23.5 million downloads on our podcast. Remember, the podcast is just the 5th or 6th way, 7th way you can get this ubiquitous show. John Frederick's Radio Network nationwide. Real America's Voice, and Real America's Voice is a program we know all day is going to be covering. As soon as we're off, we're the pregame show starting at noon for the rest of the day. They will be covering this massive rally with their crack team led by Ben Bergquam and the guys in Denver. I want to say congratulations to Real America's Voice, doing an amazing job. Also, G News, GTV, everywhere, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. So you can get it. Millions of people are watching this show on a daily basis, and the reason is it's all signal and no noise. Want to start, we've got a jam show today. In the second hour, we've got one of the most important thinkers in America, Joel Kotkin, is coming to us live from Los Angeles to talk about the pandemic, to talk about this election, to talk about all of it, the geopolitics of it, how it's going to affect the nation. And his question is, has China won? Has the CCP won? I want to start first, though, with the president's lawyer and America's mayor, one of the great heroes in modern American history, and now officially the recipient of Patriot of the Year by the National Pulse. National Pulse, one of the most important emerging news sites out there. Editor-in-chief is Raheem Kassam. Fantastic picture on the cover of National Pulse. Rudy Giuliani, Patriot of the Year for the year 2020. And that says a lot in a year that there have been a lot of people step up to the plate to be selected by the committee over there of really top-notch people. Americans Principles Project is the sponsor of the National Pulse. National Pulse show is actually on Real America's Voice at 3 o'clock every day. Patriot of the Year, Rudy Giuliani. So I want to bring in, Mayor, you saw Cuomo last night, and what was amazing about him, the arguments these guys have on the merits are so weak. He's saying, hey, the legislature passed it and the Supreme Court changed it, and they had time to do it. They don't really ever get down to the substance. So I think the first question we have that I know our audience's heads are blowing up, and I tried to temper people yesterday, but standing's going to be we had Ed Pasquale on, one of the top constitutional lawyers around, a guy in Florida that made sure that the vote down there went correct. He was in the Bush-Gore situation back in 2000, a warrior for Trump in 2016, was our guy that ran it down there and made sure we got a clear count of the vote and did such a great job this year. And he was trying to temper people, saying, hey, look, I think standing could be an issue and you may have to take other alternatives. So, Mayor, tee us up right now. You're not just the head guy that's coordinating all this. You're also the master strategist for President Trump. Where do we stand on Saturday morning, the 12th, when we're told by our bettors that the Electoral College is going to meet essentially on noon on Monday, and then it's game over? You know, Rudy and Jenna Ellis and Boris can pack their tents up. Bernie Carrick can go back to wherever Bernie Carrick came from. The war room can start, railing on the CCP because this election is officially over on Monday. What say you, America's mayor?
We move immediately, seamlessly to Plan B, which is to bring lawsuits now in each one of the states. We had them ready. They're just a version of the one that was brought to the Supreme Court. So last night, the president made the decision that we're going to file in Pennsylvania. We're going to file in Michigan. We're going to file in Georgia. We already have a case in Wisconsin. We filed, or we're going to file in Nevada. Arizona, we have a case that's ongoing today. So we're going to go forward with those cases, incorporating the allegations in the Supreme Court complaint in those cases. So that the answer is, if you don't think we have standing, if the state doesn't have standing, surely the President of the United States has standing, and certainly the electors in the states have standing. So they will be bringing those very cases right in those courts, starting today. And let's see what excuse they can try to use to avoid having a hearing on that. The tragedy of this, Steve, is that they're using standing as a dodge to not have to face the facts. Nobody wants to face the reality that this election was stolen. And I'm almost getting this feeling, but I don't think it's going to happen. And we're going to have another Biden thing happen. 6 months from now, we're all going to find out how badly stolen this was. And we're going to have found out that it was covered up, just the way we're now finding out how deeply involved in crime the Biden family has been for 40 years, and how that was covered up for 3 years. And all of a sudden we find out after the election. I mean, this is outrageous what they're doing. And it should come out. The American people should have the benefit of hearing these facts, and then the court and the American people can make their decision. The facts have been kept from them. All of these decisions, they say, all these court decisions, not a single court decision has had a hearing yet. They haven't heard from a single witness. They haven't looked at a single tape. They haven't listened to a single recording. There are thousands of them. They haven't even bothered to look at the tape in Atlanta, Georgia, which is dispositive. It shows an ongoing voter theft of 30,000 votes, enough to change the election. It's like a Pierce Brosnan movie of a bank heist. You just watch it, there's the crime.
Mayor, how are we going to, you've got, first off, there's suits all over the place right now. How are these going to coordinate? Now you're saying you're filing these suits. Are you incorporating some of the elements from these other suits out there? And how do you expect, what's your, since I take it another set of plaintiffs are the electors of those states. So the electors and the president as the aggrieved party here, as the candidate who got electoral votes. I think 232, I think, is the count that he's got already. You're saying, is that what gives you standing to go back to district court and start to argue this? That you believe that that's what will give you standing?
Well, sure. I mean, if he doesn't, no one does. Then you can't sue for election fraud. Then the courts might as well announce we can do election fraud for the rest of our lives, and nobody can ever sue. They've come pretty close to announcing that anyway. You can do anything you want. You can be on television stealing 30,000 votes right in front of our eyes, and the court's going to say you have no standing. Well, let's see if they're going to say to the President of the United States, you've been allegedly cheated out of an election, and you don't have a chance to make that allegation in court. We're not going to even allow you to make that allegation in court. Then we've basically ended a country with a court system. What do we have left?
At noon today, I think...
Basically, we might as well litigate everything in the New York Times.
There was a 7-hour hearing yesterday, I think, at a district court in the state of Wisconsin, which I think is one of the strongest. This is the one Reince Priebus and these guys have put together. I believe they're at the Supreme Court starting at noon. The Supreme Court, it shows you the power. And look, as word gets out, the more... And two things. Number one, your roadshow going around from Gettysburg to Arizona to Lansing, Michigan to Atlanta, Georgia. Your roadshow that went around and presented in 10 and 11-hour hearings sometimes. To get those, that was the beginning of breaking this dam, and you could see public opinion starting to shift. The more these go up to the courts, the more people get an inkling of the information. You can see with Cuomo. Cuomo's just putting out false information, right? I shouldn't say false information.
Yes, absolutely.
He's not getting to the heart of really what the matter is. They're spinning it, right? So I don't say it's false. It's just they're presenting it in a certain way that looks like it's innocuous when, in fact, that's not the heart of the case. So you're winning by pushing these. But I think one of the questions our audience have, and remember, we consider ourselves the one of the voices of the Trump movement or the platforms for the Trump movement, is here you have our problem is in states with Republican legislatures, with many cases Republican executives. And if you look, even some of these courts have Republicans, and obviously the Supreme Court has an overwhelming majority, a 6-3 majority of conservatives and or people selected by Republican presidents. If you can't, if you can't get momentum or get traction there, is it because you just don't have the facts? What say you, Mayor?
Well, we have the facts. There's no question about it. They don't want to listen to the facts. We can't get beyond the first step of their saying we're going to have the patience to just sit there for one day and listen to the facts. That's what standing says. You don't get a chance to argue. You don't get a chance to present your case. You don't have the right to present your case. It says nothing about your case. It says you don't have the right to. Basically, the decision was that the state of Texas was not aggrieved, which I think is wrong. The state of Texas was aggrieved when another state acted illegally, therefore diminishing its vote. But the Supreme Court decided that they weren't aggrieved. Now, let them say that to the President of the United States. He is going to allege, let's just take Georgia, for example, that in the state of Georgia, they counted, we have evidence of a tape recording in which they counted 30,000 votes for Biden that were phony votes. It's on tape. It's right there to be seen. We can watch it in 1 hour and 10 minutes. And let's see if they'll watch it for 1 hour and 10 minutes. No court has bothered to do that yet. We have 100 witnesses in Georgia who will testify that they saw votes entered 18 times, 20 times. They saw Biden's name put in place of Trump. They saw people told to vote for Biden instead of Trump. They backdated documents. They're all willing to testify to this. Let them testify to it, and then decide whether they're telling the truth or not. That's what America's about, not shutting them up.
Mayor,
not saying, you can't
Mayor,
for a hearing.
Mayor, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to bring you on the other side. The question, and don't answer it yet, but I want to put the question to you before we go to break. Should there be a special prosecutor? Yesterday you said there should be a special prosecutor assigned immediately to the Biden crime family syndicate by the Attorney General. And in fact, you, Rudy Giuliani, would volunteer, and you, Rudy Giuliani, could actually bring an indictment by Inauguration Day against Biden on the count of compromise by the CCP. Do you believe, we're going to come back and break in a minute, do you believe a special prosecutor should be assigned with full subpoena power to look at election fraud and voter fraud throughout the nation? Rudy Giuliani, the awardee of the Patriot of the Year by the National Pulse, will return and join us in just a minute.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
My guest is Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the president's chief strategist and senior lawyer in this entire operation. Mayor, look, we've got, you're fighting on many fronts. You've got lawsuits all over. You're filing more lawsuits today that dovetails what the Texas lawsuit had and what John Eastman had. You're going state by state. You're trying to get traction to the Supreme Court. You've got other fights going on with electric for. You got other fights that are going to go on in January. There's Ron Johnson's going to have a hearing next week. People are engaged. You've got 18 states that came in amicus briefs, 6 states that came in with Missouri as co-plaintiffs. You got 160, I think, Congressmen have now signed up for this, putting their name to it. Across the country, you're building a wave of momentum as you get more facts out, because facts don't lie. However, in this entire thing, is it not time for the President of the United States to direct, for the good of the Constitution, the Republic, the American people, and quite frankly, free people throughout the world, to designate immediately a special prosecutor with unlimited subpoena power and a massive budget to go through this entire election fraud and voter fraud on a state-by-state basis? Sir, what would be your response?
I do think so, Steve. I think it needs that. You know, I'm not a proponent of the special prosecutor. I was opposed to it many years ago when it first was passed. I testified against it as unconstitutional. I've always thought it was bad policy. I can't think of a special prosecutor that really worked out the way it should in terms of fairness to both sides. Although there are situations in which it's so impossible to cut through the mire that has existed now in the Justice Department. This needs it. It needs it. It needs to be done quickly. It needs to be done expeditiously. It needs to be done with subpoena power. Look, we've tried to do it without subpoena power, and it's been we've gathered a lot of facts, thousands and thousands of affidavits, tapes, recordings, enough so we can prove it. But with subpoena power, we could have gathered it in half the amount of time. Even more powerful.
So Mayor, why is Bill? Why is? Hang on, but what you've got? Bernie Carrick tells me there's over 2,000 signed affidavits under penalty of perjury. I think you have another 1,000 pieces of evidence on top of that. It could do, I don't know, 50, 80, 100 volumes, document like they did out in Nevada. I think they had 8 or 10 volumes just for Nevada. And Bill Barr heckles you, Mayor Giuliani. He says, I haven't seen any evidence. I don't know. Is there any evidence? I haven't seen any evidence. I haven't seen any evidence. Any evidence. That we know for the truck driver hasn't been, that no investigator will go up and sit down with the truck driver with the missing trailer. We've got people from Michigan that you've had testify next to you down to what's happening in Georgia. And there's crickets out of DOJ. What is the story with Bill Barr? Should he be brought into the Oval and say, I need you on top of this for the country, or you're going to have to find another line of work?
Well, I do think he should be sat down in the Oval Office and they should play the Atlanta tape for him. They should let him sit through the whole thing and then ask him did you just see evidence of fraud? Because if you can look at that and not see evidence of fraud, then there's something wrong with your deductive abilities. And it's so obvious. I mean, it would be like putting a video of a man shooting another man, killing him, and say, did you just see a shooting? And you say, no. Here you see ballots taken out from under a table. You see them being counted 3 and 4 times. You see it done very surreptitiously. You see people thrown out of the room. It's quite obvious that it's being done in violation of the law of Georgia, which requires inspectors around. The inspectors have been thrown out. I mean, it's about as obvious as you can get. So I don't understand how he can say he's seen no evidence of fraud. There have also been people on television who have sworn affidavits that they saw voter fraud. There was the woman who worked for the city of Detroit, who was taught how to cheat. She went through a whole litany of how she was taught how to cheat and what she did under oath. Why would she be lying? She's a 65-year-old naturalized American citizen, a fine American, who started crying because they asked her to do such horrible things. Why? These people aren't lying. They're telling the truth. And why he says that, it's beyond me, Steve. I know the man. He's an honest, honorable man. I don't understand how he can say he sees no evidence of fraud.
Does the president himself, as president as chief magistrate, does he actually have the ability to basically select a special prosecutor, or does that power reside in the attorney general?
The president has all the powers of the attorney general. So the president can do anything the attorney general does. Or put another way, the attorney general only has power because it comes from the president. It's all derivative, the single executive theory. So any power that any executive officer has, the president has. So it's unusual. I don't think the president's ever done it. but a president could himself on his own name a independent.
Do you believe in this case?
counsel.
Do you believe in this case to defend the Constitution and the concept of free and fair elections and due process and one man, one vote, all of that, right? Equal protection, what they argued up in Pennsylvania. Do you believe it's within the rights and, quite frankly, the duty of the president to select a special prosecutor to look into the election fraud and the voter fraud?
I do. I think that if we don't bring these facts out now, they're coming out, and it's going to be a terrible stain on our history. If they don't come out now, they're going to come out over the next year, and over the next year, it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Very much like we're now seeing the Biden facts start to come out.
Okay, I want to pivot to that. You're saying a crisis. You're saying we're heading towards a crisis. If this boil's not lanced now, we're asking for a crisis to come. We're already in a crisis. It's going to get worse. Let's go to the Biden side of the fan. Let's go. Yeah, yesterday you called for a special prosecutor in the Biden side. Is it your belief that they have been compromised? Not just Hunter, but the entire family and the entire operation has been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, and that they right now are a national security risk to the United States of America?
Sure, I have the memorandum that compromises it. I have the memorandum signed by a Chinese communist high-level intelligence operative, a Chinese communist master spy, and a third spy with Hunter Biden, James Biden, Sarah Biden, and Papa Biden, in which Hunter was going to get an upfront payment of $1 million, and they were going to get $10 million a year to find deals for these Chinese communists. That was dated 2018. They had an office. Joe Biden was given the primary office space in that office, and he was in business. He was in business with Chinese communists. I mean, was concealed, covered up, hidden, whatever you want to call it, during the election by all the so-called newspapers that are supposed to be protecting.
It wasn't just the newspaper,
right,
but Mayor, it wasn't just the newspapers. It was the Attorney General of the United States and the Director of the FBI. The Attorney General of the United States suppressed this information. It's bad enough that it's the media that's complicit, but it's actually to the heart. And the last time I looked, he's the Attorney General of Donald J. Trump. The question once again on the special prosecutor, as the chief magistrate in the country, because it's a national security issue, does the President of the United States have the ability, in your professional opinion, to also appoint a special prosecutor to look into the national security issues related to Biden?
He does, and that document should be put out right now. People should read that document and see exactly who 2 years ago the Biden family did business with. I mean, it's extraordinary that a man is that close to the presidency who 2 years ago was willing to do business with Chinese communists, high-level Chinese communists. One of them described as his son as a Chinese master spy. Hunter Biden described their partner as a Chinese master spy.
Do you agree with Ted Cruz said yesterday, Mayor, that there should be no movement whatsoever in case this thing doesn't get sorted out and somehow Biden gets jammed in there, that under no circumstances should any nominations move forward on Biden for confirmation by the Senate until this situation with this compromise with the CCP has to be fully vetted by either a special prosecutor or a formal investigation? Do you agree with that?
Of course I do. I mean, this is a national security problem of the length and breadth of it I've ever seen before. I've never encountered a problem at this length involving a person who is a possible president-elect, putative president-elect, however you want to describe him, but someone where there's a clear possibility he'll move toward the White House. He doesn't get a background check going into the White House. Unfortunately, the kind of facts that we know about him would mean he'd fail any background test for the lowest government position.
Mayor, how do people get access to what's your Twitter? The show's on every day. I think it.
Well, I think, just go to rudyscommonsense.com and look at the you look at the early podcasts, they're all about Ukraine. You look at the later podcasts, they're all about China.
No, it's absolutely brilliant.
What it shows is a lifetime of crime.
And
it shows a lifetime of crime.
So we have the
Biden family.
We have the podcast. You have a daily show on WABC. I think at 4:00 in the afternoon. You've got a Sunday show with with 3:00 in the afternoon. You got a show with Dr. Maria Ryan on at 10:00 or 11:00. 10:00 Sunday morning.
10:00.
10:00 with Dr. Maria Ryan. You got a daily show on WABC. We got about 15 seconds. What's your Twitter handle and Parler so people can follow Rudy during the day?
Rudy Giuliani. Just put down Rudy Giuliani. You'll get me on Twitter and Parler, both.
The Patriot of the Year, so says the National Pulse, and I got to tell you, so does say the War Room Posse. Mayor, great honor. Thank you for taking so much time today with us.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for covering it so comprehensively.
Short commercial break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, it's a gathering of the tribes today. It is the 12th of December, the year of our Lord, 2020. It is Saturday. We just finished with Mayor Giuliani, who gave us the overview. We're now going to get the details. Right after we finish with Boris Epshteyn, who's going to speak today on the main stage platform at 12:40 at the rally, the March for Trump rally. We're going to go to Bergquam and Amy Kremer and Fog City Midge, everybody that's down there right now, to start to talk about what's happening today. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area, the Mid-Atlantic region, get in your car and come down. The energy is amazing. It's positive. It's powerful. It's empowering. Okay? This movement is just at the beginning stage of a great awakening. In that, it is going to enforce its will on this election. This election is not going to be stolen. The victory of Donald Trump is going to be closed. And I understand, YouTube, that yes, officially on Safe Harbor Day, I think 49 states officially said their electors are going to be who they're going to be, and that Biden would be president-elect. Just like they said we were winning the Vietnam War, and just like they said we were winning the war in Afghanistan, and just like they said the Warren Commission was absolutely correct, and just like they said 5 of the 7 reports and studies and commissions in Pearl Harbor were correct. And guess what? All of those were wrong, just like this is wrong, and we're going to prove it's wrong with things called facts and the truth. And let's get down to the facts. We have Boris Epshteyn. We had the big picture from Rudy, who basically reinforced what President Donald J. Trump said. Very simple: fight on. Okay. Now, Boris Epshteyn, one of the grinders in Rudy's elite strike force, is now with us. So you're filing all over today, Boris. Why is this different now that you're including electors and you're going to include Eastman's going to include some of the stuff from the Texas suit? Why are we in different shape today about getting standing than these other suits that have been ongoing in these various states?
Steve, great to be with you. And I'll tell you, as we all look back on what will end up being a very successful period and a historic time in our country, that intro to your show that I've been hearing every day now for over a month is going to ring true and loud in my mind. It's great to be with you as always. Here is the fact. Last night, the Supreme Court punted and did not rule on the merits of the Texas lawsuit at all. They said no standing. I happen to disagree. I think it's obvious that the people of Texas, the state of Texas, are impacted by how the state of Pennsylvania, or state of Georgia, state of Wisconsin, state of Michigan carry out their elections. Because guess what? The president that ends up being elected is the president of all the states. But that happened last night. Now we move on. Now, the standing issue can be tackled very easily. As you mentioned, what you do is you look at the specific state, the state of Georgia, for example, and you go to federal court. You have the Trump electors of the state of Georgia. You have potentially the candidate himself as a plaintiff, and you file that lawsuit. The standing issue disappears immediately, because there's no way you can't say that people of the state of Georgia, the state of Michigan, state of Wisconsin, state of Pennsylvania don't have standing to allege a due process and equal protection were deprived to them. They were deprived of these constitutional protections because of the way that Democrats carried out this election. The consent decree in Georgia, the almost 700,000 mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania that were processed without observers, inspectors, just in Philadelphia and Allegheny County. The fact that 71% of the precincts in Wayne County are unbalanced, meaning the amount of people voting and the amount of votes do not match up. Wisconsin's so vital. There's a court hearing in Wisconsin today in the state Supreme Court at noon today, at high noon, a hearing in Wisconsin all about those 221,000 ballots that were cast illegally against Wisconsin law, against the Wisconsin Constitution. So as you said, as Mayor Giuliani said, and as most vitally, most importantly, President Trump said, we fight on. And I'm going to be at Freedom Plaza at 12:35, just got the updated time, 12:35. I'll be speaking to the great Americans gathering in our nation's capital today for the MAGA March.
Let's go. I want to focus on a couple. Wisconsin, they had a 7-hour, 8-hour hearing yesterday. They're going to go to the Supreme Court immediately. I think that starts also at noon, and that will be up on our live stream. I think A Real America's Voice will cut in and out to that because they're going to be arguing. This is the one Reince previous. This is state court.
That's right.
Right there, you caught him dead to rights in Wisconsin, right? And here you're getting a real hearing in front of real judges. And I'm not saying which way they're going to opine because I know people are intimidated and afraid. But do you have other states that you believe you've got the goods as strongly as you have them in Wisconsin, where you caught them trying to change the early voting rules, which didn't exist, and also gun decking or trying to radically change the thing for people that are under long-term care, right? And then do ballot harvesting, and then on top of that, do ballot harvesting in parks.
Definitely confined.
And definitely confined, but do ballot harvesting among people in these parks, et cetera. They had picnic tables. So,
right.
I mean, the testimony was absolutely brutal, from the nursing homes to the parks. It was incredible. Where do you think we stand in Wisconsin? Are you guys not going to be part of that? Because that's right now in a state court. And do you have other states, like Michigan just announced they're going to do an audit, but the media is playing that down. What's the reality of that? Is that just the Secretary of State's going to shine it on like they're doing in Georgia, and they're saying, oh, yeah, we're going to show you the chain of custody at midnight on the 19th of January? Shined on, or all these movements where you see audits in Michigan, you see reality in Wisconsin. Do they have any substance to them that you can enforce something?
Absolutely. Let's start with Wisconsin, where, as you said, the Democrats have been caught red-handed, exposed in Wisconsin, and it's all because of that audit. And if you remember, when the audit finished, which President Trump, the Trump campaign paid for $3 million, the mainstream media was pumping their fists and doing a dance, like, oh, look, you didn't get any votes out of the recount. Well, guess what? What we got out of the recount is absolutely hard evidence of those 221,000 ballots cast illegally, 221,000 ballots in a state where the difference is 20,000 cast illegally. And that's just in Milwaukee County and Dane County, which is where Madison, Wisconsin is. And guess what? Those are about 70, 30, 80, 20 counties. So that hearing at noon today, very important in Wisconsin, in the state Supreme Court, which, if you remember, previously saw this and said that there appears to be a lot of merit in the lawsuit, but it has to work its way through the state courts. Well, now we've done that, and now we're back at the state Supreme Court. So that's Wisconsin. The Georgia lawsuit is a powerhouse of merit. Over 400,000 votes they're alleged to be cast illegally in the state of Georgia, again, where the difference is 13, 14,000. Dead people voting, people who don't reside in the state voting, people switching counties and not re-registering voting, illegal immigrants voting. Georgia has been a disaster. We remember that they were finding ballots under every rock in the pro-Trump counties in Georgia. In Michigan, to your point, we are going to do everything possible to make sure that is a real audit that gets to the bottom of what truly happened. In Antrim County, with the 6,000 votes, we know were switched from President Trump to Vice President Biden, magically, quote unquote, by mistake, and then switched back when exposed, quote unquote, magically, by mistake. I like this kind of magic. I wonder why there's never magic of votes switching from Biden to Trump, right? It's always one way. strange how that happens, isn't it? We know what the Democrats have been doing in this country for decades, Steve. We know they've been perpetrating voter fraud on the American public, and we are putting an end to it here and now. And we're not being governed by artificial dates. December 8th came and went. December 14th is going to come and go. The first substantial date is January 6th. The next one is January 20th. And guess what? There's a path in the Constitution for what happens if the real, legitimate president has not selected by then, because the president has to be selected based on the legal votes. The legal votes determine the electors determine the president. That's how it works in this country. That's what we're governed by.
Are you telling our audience that you intend to fight, the president intends to fight, his legal team intends to fight until they get a real accounting of just legal votes? Is that what we're hearing?
What I'm saying to you is what the president said, and I'm always going to act under his leadership and under his guidance. We fight on, and the fight is to count every legal vote and not to be governed by the dates that the mainstream media and their comrade Democrats are trying to use to stop us, and to gaslight the American people, to lie to the American people, say, oh, no, it's all over. It is not all over. If it were all over, how could there be a hearing in the Wisconsin Supreme Court at noon today? December 8th was 5 days ago.
I'm going to give you some signal, not noise. Right now, we had, I think, 18 or 19 states, attorney generals signed amicus briefs, plus other groups signed amicus briefs for the lawsuit. You had 6 states, I think, came in as co-plaintiffs. I believe there's 160 congressmen in Congress that have signed on. Johnson in the Senate says he's going to start a formal investigation next week on his committee. You've got these state legislatures, some of whom are the ones being sued, signed amicus briefs and called in. 10 days after the election, it was crickets. When you would go to where you guys were working at the campaign, there was a handful of people, true believers, that said, hey, we've got to get to every legal vote. That's what the president demands for the American people for defense of the Constitution. Now you're having a wave of people come on here, everything from Ted Cruz saying, I'll argue this in front of the Supreme Court, to people having inquiries, and all these state legislatures, people coming together, Republicans and Trump supporters, plus the polling is off the charts, given the mainstream media suppressed it, given that Bill Barr and the FBI suppressed the investigation of Biden now that we know, all of this information being suppressed. It is stunning to me, this massive shift in the last 10 days, and it started, Boris, when Rudy Giuliani went to Gettysburg to do the hearing. Those hearings that you guys put on across the country, plus relentlessly getting back in front of courts and putting up this information. Is that the plan that you have? Is the strategy to continue to hunker down and just drive the football downfield, move the chains, and as the chains move, you galvanize not just Republicans, not just the Trump movement, but you start to galvanize fair, independent-minded American people?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, I've been on Team Trump for a long time now, as you know. And we've been written off time and time and time again for the last 5 years. And we're now going to start listening to the liars and, frankly, the losers in the mainstream media and on the left now. What we're going to do is continue to fight, continue to bring the message directly to the American people through outlets such as this one, the amazing War Room, which is broken through like an icebreaker going through the tundra of the mainstream media. And that is not hyperbole, Steve. Everywhere I go, people are saying, I'm listening to you on the War Room, because you are breaking through. You are not letting the mainstream media and the Democrats intimidate you. And that's what we are going to do. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep bringing our cases in the courts and to the legislatures. And again, fight for something that's righteous, which is counting every legal vote. And I call on the Democrats to join us, because if they ever want to be considered legitimate, they should want to get to the bottom of how voting really works in this country.
Okay, 12:35 today, Boris Epshteyn is going to address the crowd down there at Freedom Plaza. It's going to be massive. He's going to be a speaker at 12:35. Boris, how do people follow you during the day on Instagram and social media?
I'm going to be putting pictures up on the gram today from Freedom Plaza, no doubt about it. Boris _Epshteyn, Boris _EPSHTYN TEYN. I'm going to be tweeting at Boris EP. Parler, the one and only at Boris. God bless, rock and roll. See you in Freedom Plaza. Make America great again.
That's Boris Epshteyn, one of the president's top lawyers. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we're going to go to the stage in Freedom Plaza. We've got Real America's Voice, Ben Bergquam. We have one of the coordinators of the whole march, Amy Kremer, the great Amy Kremer. We've also got Fog City Midge, all of them down at the stage when we return. Gathering of the tribes in Washington, D.C. today. They've got the president's back, they've got the Constitution's back, and they've got the American people's back. All next in the War Room.
Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room. Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. It's a gathering of the Tribes Day, another massive rally, massive march here in Washington, D.C. Peaceful, powerful, and empowering. Okay, I want to go now to the coordinator, the one who thought it all up, Amy Kremer. We're going to have her daughter, Kylie. As you know, we have Kylie on the show just about every day. Amy Kremer, Women for Trump, and also March for Trump. Amy, walk us through the logistics. What's happening today? There's a huge audience out here in the War Room in the Mid-Atlantic states that want to come and participate. What can they do? Where do they go? What are they going to see?
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on. Oh, my gosh, the crowd is already building, and it's crazy. Freedom Plaza, 12 noon. That's at the intersection of Pennsylvania Avenue and 14th Street. Come join us. We have a great lineup of speakers. We've got two big, huge, so the people all the way down Pennsylvania will be able to hear and see the speakers. We've got Seb Gorka, Pastor Mark Burns, Boris Epshteyn. I think you just had him on. Jack Posobiec, State Senator from Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano. We've got a great lineup. That program will probably last somewhere between 1:30 and 2, and then the plan is to march to the U.S. Supreme Court. So we're really excited about today. We also have, from my own corrupt state, Representative Vernon Jones, also David Harris Jr., and so Mike Lindell, who, as you know, have helped sponsor this. So we've got an incredible lineup. The crowd is huge already. The Trump flags out here, the music, it's just incredible. The spirit is alive and well, and this movement is full of love. Love of country, love of our president, love of each other. It is going to be a fantastic day.
Okay, so folks should look for the historic Willard Hotel. That's right there at 14th and Pennsylvania, right around there. There'll be a stage, huge jumbotrons. Gather there. Amazing speakers till about 2 o'clock. And then we're going to roll up. They're all going to march up Pennsylvania Avenue, up Capitol Hill to the nation's capital and to the Supreme Court. It's a huge day. Amy, how can people go online and get information about this right now?
Steve, they can go to TrumpMarch.com and get information. And also at Freedom Plaza, the two big buses are parked there. You cannot miss the buses. And by the way, for those out there that are tuning in, we're going to keep the buses rolling. We're announcing that today. We're going to keep the buses rolling. And so we're not stopping here in D.C. We're just getting started. And go to TrumpMarch.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Amy Kremer, and it's spelled like Kremer, AMYKREMER, and we're Women for America First on Facebook. But there's plenty of time for people to come join us, and we want to see everybody out here. This is a time where we need to rise up and be in the streets. We cannot allow this election to be stolen from we the people.
Amy Kremer, you're an American patriot. Thank you for joining us today, and fabulous work. The bus tour continues. We're going to have her daughter, Kylie Jane, on later. Amy, thank you so much. Okay, Real America's Voice is going to be covering this nonstop when we leave. We're the pregame show starting at noon. They'll be covering all the speakers, all the action, everything. Want to go now to the one, the only, the indefatigable Ben Bergquam, the man on the scene everywhere, whether it's Maricopa County or Washington, D.C. Ben's down there with our own from the War Room, the influencer of influencers, Maggie VandenBerghe, Fog City Midge. Ben, give us a sense of what's happening down there.
It's pumped, Steve. People are fired up. We've got the Vietnamese for Trump behind us. We were just interviewing them. Down with socialism, down with communism. We've got down with the CCP. We've got a huge War Room contingent out here.
So many
people are fired up.
They're recognizing me. They're coming up. They're saying they love the War Room. They're so grateful for the information the War Room's putting out. In fact, one guy came by earlier. He had actually a radio backpack, and he was blasting the show live. So we were listening to the show both in our earpiece and on his backpack.
And I can't tell you, Steve, how many people come up to me and say, I see you on War Room doing with Steve Bannon. Tell Steve, keep it up. You guys are the voice of freedom and liberty. You guys are the voice of truth. And that's why they're tuning in to Real America's Voice News, because this is where you actually get it. With all the fake news, with all the lies out there, people are hungry for it. And the people here, they're not stopping, Steve. No matter what the Supreme Court decided yesterday, no matter what these weak state legislators and governors have decided, the people out here are fighting to the end. They're fighting mad, and they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Ben,
and it's massive out here. It's pumped. It's like the crowds have taken over D.C., and it's one big party out here.
let me ask you, guys, we've got about 2 minutes left. How does it compare to the scale we had? The thing back in November blew people away, almost 1 million people. As you see it right now, what the scale of this thing, how big do you anticipate this is going to be today?
Well, we got out here about the same time at the last rally. There may have, it feels about the same here, but you have to keep in mind there's another huge rally going out on the mall right now as well, the Jericho March, and so there are going to be tens of thousands of people, if not more. I mean, I've heard crazy number, hundreds of thousands of people potentially. Again, split between the Jericho March, praying over the Capitol, and the Trump March, raising up the activists. So there's a combination of things going on. Huge energy. I think it's going to be massive, Steve.
Yeah, it sure looks that way. It's hard to get a handle on because every time you look down a street, there's more waves of people approaching Freedom Plaza. So there's just a lot of people moving about right now. This hasn't even started yet. So the people that are here, they're here early.
Yeah, we're still an hour out.
Okay, I want to ask you, Ben, you've been to Maricopa County, Fog City, you've been down to Georgia, you've seen the activity. Is the energy that you saw in Maricopa and in Georgia, is it being replicated in Washington, D.C. today?
Absolutely. There's no question. There's no question. Massive fraud occurred. Massive corruption occurred. They changed the rules illegally. People get that. They know it. And I would say there's more energy here. This is where everybody comes, and they feed off each other's energy, Mitch.
Yeah, there's so much energy out here, and it's so positive. People are out here, and really, honestly, this is like a celebration of patriotism, just as much as it is a protest against the steal that occurred. So, people are out here because they love their country, and they want to see us have a successful, free and fair and honest, transparent election.
Okay, we're going to come back to you two in the next hour. That's Fog City Midge, and it's Ben Bergquam from Real America's Voice. Real America's Voice, just as a programming note, live coverage of the rally starts immediately after the pregame show, which is what War Room is today, the pregame show for this massive rally. We're going to have Ben Bergquam from Real America's Voice. You're going to have Amanda Head. You've got Fog City Midge, a whole posse of the best. You'll be able to watch it from beginning to end. All the speakers, all the marches, the speakers up to the Supreme Court, all of it. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Want all the War Room to get ready for a very special guest. Joel Kotkin from Los Angeles is next on the War Room.